Or okay, alright, looks like we are live. I'll just give a couple more minutes until 5 p.m. That way we can get everyone and then we'll just start the lesson. Alright, let's see. Okay, looking good. Oh, someone just drove by on their bike. It's pretty fast. Alright, let's see how many people are currently on. 10 people watching, 12 people watching. Alright, well, I think people will start to pile in a couple minutes, so let's continue waiting. Okay, that's weird. Alright, so lesson learned, it's not good to have your stream on while you're streaming. Who would have known that the delay creates reverb? Reverb, my bad. Okay, 14 people. 14 people, interesting. Okay. Hey, Nermit, how are you? Hey, what's up? Yeah, I have it running, so I'm actually currently streaming right now, so everyone who's on can see our conversation. Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe before we start, maybe you want to introduce yourself really quickly to everyone? Alright, okay. For everyone who is watching right now, this is Nermit. He's also a part of Youth Computing, and okay, I should start from the start and tell you guys specifically what youth computing is, or else this info will fly right over your head. Alright, so youth computing is an organization me and Nermit are a part of, and our goal as an organization, as a non-profit organization at that, is to connect youth and inspire youth, basically just to connect and educate them about just the STEM field in general. So everything from hardware to programming, right? It's our goal here to teach everyone, right? Get the community more involved with STEM in general. And how are we doing this today? Well, we're teaching you Java. Okay, let's see how many people are on. 22 people. Okay, not bad. There should be a couple latecomers, but I'm not too worried about that right now. Okay. So, Nermit, how has your day been so far? Okay, no need to be so informal. I mean, no need to be so formal. Okay, all right. It's, I think because it's the first class, I think we can wait a little bit, like maybe five, anywhere like at the latest. I think five, um, 5:05, right? All right. Okay. Oh, so we have Bobby here who says, oh, and we have Rohan. Nice, nice, nice. All right, so we have Bobby who says he already knows some JavaScript. Okay, well, they may have share very similar names, but the actual applications and technologies behind Java and JavaScripts are vastly different. So other than the name, they don't have a whole lot in common. But it's good that you already have some experience with coding, Bobby. That will make it a bit easier. It will make it a bit easier. Typically, so this is an interesting fact. This is just my own opinion, but like I'm at times I will start rambling on. Uh, about stuff, but like I will keep it to but just about things that are relevant and important to know, other than just pure coding abilities. Because if you know how to code, right, but you know nothing about like the history or like the interesting facts about the language itself, that makes it that'd be kind of embarrassing, right? If you went up to someone and they asked you just a random fact on off chance, they're like, hey Sean, do you know who made Java? And I'm like, no. Do you know what Java is used for? And they say no. Um, yeah, so essentially Java is an object-oriented programming language, but I'm going to get more into it later once the lesson starts. But to like just continue. It's great that you know JavaScript, Bobby. Um, yeah, so lots of the same. There's the same principles and stuff, but like stuff like object-oriented programming is not really used. Well, it's used a lot, employed a lot in Java, right? So I don't know if you have started learning about that yet, but no worries. Even if you don't know it, that's great because that means I actually have a use. I'll actually be able to teach you something new, which is my goal. Okay, I'm going to see. Where can I code Java? Okay, Matthew. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, Matthew. That's an excellent question. So, normally, if you want to code on your own machine, your own computer, you have to download a text editor and actually download the Java the developer package off of the Oracle website. But for just because it's our first time, what I'm going to use is this application called, well, not application, it's this web application called REPL, which is essentially allows you to use an online text editor to edit your code and run it, right? Another really neat feature is that it allows a whiteboard. So if I ever need to, which I will, need to show you guys diagrams or what it may be like pictures or anything to help me get my point across to make the class more interesting than just me talking the whole time, right? I'll be able to use this to convey it to you. But yeah, to answer your question, Matthew, yeah, we're going to be using this. We're going to be using REPL. And so at around 5:05, when most people come in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to use it. That way you guys aren't actually like you guys will actually be able to code along in the lesson with me. So, oh, and then we have Yang Liu. Okay. Hey, okay. Another question from Matthew. So, is Java close to Python? Okay, Java is not close to Python. Reason being is that Java is completely object oriented, right? So unlike Python, which the language of Python is like, actually, I think it's better I show you. So here you can see that this is a piece of Java code, right? We don't need this right now, but if you know how to use the basics of Python, then you know what a print statement is, right? But you can see that if I actually try to input a print statement right here, say I'll use the, so assuming that I use the correct syntax. So this right here is the print statement in Java. So it'll allow you to print text to the console right here, which you'll be able to show. So say I try to print hello world. It's not going to work, and I'll show you really quickly. So right here, it says error, class, interface, or enum expected. Okay, so I'm going to get into it later briefly, but essentially what it is that Java needs to be organized into a certain way so that it can be actually be compiled and interpreted by the machine, and then it can actually run the code, right? And that require, and in order to do that, you actually have to divide it into something called classes, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I'll start teaching the actual lesson at 5:05, but let's see if we have any more questions. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, Replit is completely free, right? If it wasn't free, I would not want you guys to use it at all because honestly, um, there's just so many options. And in my opinion, Replit is really good just starting off when you're learning to code, right? And so what I'm going to do is that uh, I'm going to type right here or draw it right here the specific address you need to go to in order to go it. So what you want to do right now is search up REPL.it on whatever kind of web browser you have. And what it should do is, I'll show you. Or let's just say I type in this, right? It will take, you want to click this link right here, collaborative browser based IDE, and this will allow you to actually write code on your browser, which at the start is really good for learning, but if you actually want to do stuff, I advise you, get a real text editor. But this is really great just because it's online. You don't need to download anything beforehand. And I mean, yeah, those are the main features. And also, it's really easy to follow along. It's a lot simpler than other text editors. Okay, so once you reach this page, you'll get a whole bunch of stuff down here. Don't read any of that. You don't need any of that. Okay. The main thing here is you just want to sign up and create an account. Or alternatively, if you do have a, what's it called, a Google account, you can go in here and log in and create a REPL account. All right. Oh yeah, I'm using Microsoft Edge. Yeah, I'm a loser. Yeah, I'm a loser. I use Microsoft Edge. Yeah, I don't use Google Chrome because I don't want to install it, or I don't even know if it's even installed on my computer. But like, Microsoft Edge is better because I like Microsoft. Okay. I think someone just joined the meeting, right, Nermit? Okay, all right, cool. All right, so it's called JavaScript, right? No, Yan, we're actually using the language, coding language Java, right? So I'll show you guys right here. So there's actually a very distinct difference between Java and JavaScript. Man, technology is amazing. All right. So the key difference between JavaScript and Java lies primarily in the uses. Okay, all right. Actually, I'll address your question later, but for now, I think I'm just going to start the lesson since we do have quite a few people on right now. All right, let's get started today. Okay, so before we actually start, I actually start teaching you guys, I think it's important that you guys know who I am and why I'm teaching you guys here today. All right. And so to answer the first question, my name is Sean, right? Sean, I think it's important that you know my name because for one, hopefully you'll be seeing me every week from now on, right? Every Sunday. Basically, I'm going to be your teacher for from now until this course is over, and I will be teaching you, the basics of coding in the Java programming language, which is a really great language. It's the second most used in the world, right? And it's used for lots of different purposes. First of all, it's used to make apps. It's primarily used by Android apps, but that's getting off track. Okay, so all right. The reason why I'm actually teaching you guys this is because well, I started learning coding this way too. So around I'd say a year and a half ago was when I started learning Python through an online course, which was taught by someone who you may or may not know. His name is George Jung. In fact, if you're watching if you're watching this lesson right now, then you probably also you actually probably learned from him too, right? And so beforehand, what happened was I was really intimidated overall just by coding, right? So to give you guys a brief background of myself, I go to a school called Westwood Community High School, right? And so at my school, I had lots of classmates who are really good at computer science in general, and they were on like advanced topics like machine learning or like already, right? And so for me, a total newbie who knew nothing about computers, it was really intimidating for me to first start. Primarily because I didn't know where to start and I didn't know how to teach myself, right? But eventually, when I found out about George's online classes, I was blown away, right? Because the reason why I think I was able to teach was because I was able to be able to learn was because I was in an environment where there was like no there was like well, I can't say there were no expectations, right? Because obviously my parents had expectations, but I feel like the reason why I was able to learn coding and learn faster within the past couple of years is because I completely threw out what threw out the fear of looking bad in front of other people because for a large majority of time that's what held me back from actually learning how to code and participating in like these sorts of coding events, right? Because I didn't know anything at all, right? And I didn't want to be left behind. And I think lots of people here might have the same sentiments as me, as I once did. Right now, you may not know anything about coding, but I can assure you that me and my team will be here with you throughout every step of the way. And hopefully, just hopefully, you guys will learn something from my classes. All right, so now that you know who I am and why I'm teaching you, I want to introduce you to another person, and his name is Nermit. So, Nermit, do you want to introduce yourself? Yeah, okay. So, anyways, let's get started. Thank you, Nermit. Nermit's a really cool guy, as you can see here in my drawing. But yeah, he'll be here to help you alongside me if you guys have any questions at all. And I can see already that, yeah, oh, we can barely hear Nermit. All right, so I'll just reiterate upon what Nermit said before. So essentially, Nermit will be another teacher who will be here to help us and help you if you have any troubles, right? And I can already see that people are having a bit trouble who are finding the place for coding. But that's okay. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how to get to it, all right? So first, what you want to do is go into your browser. And I want you to type the exact same characters as me. Okay, guys, follow along. It's going to be super hard. R E P L I T. Okay, I'm already sweating after just typing that out. All right, you guys want to type these series of characters into your browser and press enter. All right. So once you press enter, you will most likely see this link right here. I want you to click on this link. Okay, guys? All right. So it's very complicated. Okay, so I want you guys to follow along. You take your mouse and you drag it over this link and click it, right? And so once you click it, you'll be sent to this page right here. And now in order to actually get to the coding part, you have to log in, right? Log in or sign up. If you can log in if you have a Facebook or Google account, which is good. If not, then just sign up really quickly, right? But I'm already logged in, and so yeah. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you what the home page looks like. So right here, your home page should look like this. And so what you want to do right now in order to actually be able to write the code in Java is go to this create here. This, you see where it says create in big bold black text. You want to go under there and then press this plus button. Now, and once you get to the language part, you want to search for Java, right? Or if you're like me and you already created a couple REPL repositories, you can automatically find Java. But for the sake of this, we'll just type in Java. Okay, and what you'll be met with are lots of different Javas, right? You have Kotlin, which is essentially a Java clone, which is probably going to replace Java. And well, no, Java will never be replaced, right? And then here's CoffeeScript. It's like a worse version because Java is the best programming language, and that's why I'm teaching it to you. That's a joke for obvious reasons, but yeah, each programming language has its own uses, but we're going to use Java because it's a really good language to learn lots of the basics and important fundamental skills. And so we're going to click Java here to make it confirm as a Java language. Okay, and over here we're going to name our REPL. So you can name it whatever you want. I'll just name it random name, because I already have another one which I'm going to use, not this one. And what you're going to do is, in order to create the REPL, press create. All right, and you've already done most of the hard work already. Now you can finally start coding. Once you actually create your REPL, what you should find are these files right here. Okay, wait, hold on. I have a question from the chat. Yeah. Okay, so when you're looking for the language, only select Java. We do not want Java Swing. We do not want JavaScript. We do not want Kotlin. We do not want CoffeeScript. What we want is Java. Java. CoffeeScript. Please don't do CoffeeScript. We want to use Java, right? The Java programming language. All right. And so if everyone is already on that step, then just tell me that you guys are done in the chat and I'll move on. Man, it's such a great day to teach. Okay, yeah, Angela, yeah, just choose Java, don't choose CoffeeScript because I've never worked with CoffeeScript before. In fact, I haven't even heard of it before, so just use Java, please. All right, we have Bobby who is done. All right, Bobby, nice, nice. You got the ball rolling already. Oh, can I slow down? Oh yeah, just to remind you guys, if at any time you want me to slow down talking or like slow down how I'm going through the process of things or how I'm explaining, just let me know and I'll slow down because I want you guys to absorb all the information, right? It'd be kind of redundant if I just went at supersonic speed and you guys retain nothing. Okay, so Angela, you chose Java. Good, good. All right. So nice. I think most people are there. All right. Okay, so Ruth, if you can't sign up, then I don't know if you already have a REPL account, but uh, what you want to do is you want to press the login button here. And okay, actually, what I'll do is that okay. So are you still having the same trouble? Okay, it looks like most people are done. So Ruth, if you still have troubles, just let me know and I'll help you, okay? All right, so no worries if you can't get it. This is how it is with most things in life. It's super slow at the start. There's always that initial learning curve, but I want to emphasize this particular point. And as you go through your journey of learning how to code or learning how to do anything, I want to remind you guys that perseverance is key, right? If it wasn't perseverance from now, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably still be in bed, right? Um, well, no, I probably wouldn't. I'd have better stuff to do. But like, um, with anything and with coding in general, it can be really daunting, really intimidating at first, as a beginner, right? Because well, the way it's portrayed in media and in television is that it's something that super complicated, and when in reality it's not that complicated. It's actually quite simple, and you just have to think in a logical way in order to excel. That's not a word. Excel and be successful in coding. So it may be hard at the start, but just do a little bit every day, and as you go on, the concepts will be drilled into your head. All right, I say, yeah. That was a joke. Yeah, I'm not that funny, so I'm trying my best. Sorry. Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry. All right. It looks like everyone's done. So what I'll do right now is I'll actually explain what this code here means. Okay. So on line one of this main file right here, you should see this keyword called class, which is highlighted in blue. And this particular word class is an extremely important word. Okay. So the thing about Java is that everything in Java is built in a class. So every file has to be a class. And so what do I mean by that? I'll show you. Okay, let me go back to another one because this one is not the one I wanted. Yeah. So let me show you what I mean by that actually, right? So normally in Python and other programming language, you tell, and then, well, this is the case for all programming language, but you tell the computer to do something, right? And so, say on the first line, you made a program to tell the computer to tell me a joke, right? So what it would do is tell you a joke, right? You can't just do that in Java, right? You can't just like uh, write a line of code, right, with nothing outside of a class and expect it to work, right? And so that's because everything in Java is actually object orientated, right? And so what do I mean by that? What do I mean by object orientated? Because that's a big word, right? So what I mean by object orientated is that everything in Java is an object. So all of the code is being applied to an object, right? Unlike in Python, you can have objects, but not everything has to be inside of a class. Let me just, yeah, so not everything in Java has to be inside of a, well, no, sorry, not everything in Python has to be inside of a class, but that's that's vastly different from Java. In fact, it's very much opposite. So if you see here, if I try to print, and so what the print function does in Java is that it prints whatever you type inside of here into the screen. Okay, so I will show you guys right now what it actually should look like right here. Hold on one moment. Right, so right here you will see this keyword called class. And so what this indicates is that everything inside of these brackets right here, this one and this one, is actually indicative, and it means that this thing right here is being called, right? But you probably won't understand what that means unless you've already taken some kind of programming course. So I'll just show you what happens when you don't obey the laws that Java forces you to obey. So I talked briefly earlier about this thing that's called the print statement, right? So in Python, a print statement will look like this. And if you don't know Python, then this is pretty useless, but don't worry, I'll get to you people later. In Python, this is what you have as a print statement, and inside you would have some text, like maybe hello world. And in Python, what would happen is that you wouldn't need this class, right? If you just put this single line in and press run, what you would see on this black screen is hello world, right? But you can't do that in Java. So if I try to use a print statement, and I'll tell you guys what a print statement is right now. So a print statement is essentially a statement which will tell the computer to print something to this area of the screen, and I'll show you how it works right now. So class main means that it's the main class that's used the most, right? Yes, Matthew, you are correct. So what the main class is that it's a class that every single project in Java has to have. Without it, you can't actually, if we didn't have this right now, we wouldn't be able to run our code. So I'll get back to you later, but first I'm just going to show you a print statement. So this right here is a print statement, okay? So you'll notice right here that it looks like it has the words system.out.println. And so what this is telling the computer to do is it's taking, and it also has these parentheses right here, right? And so the purpose of these parentheses aren't there for any style purpose. No, they're actually there for a real purpose that's intended to help the code function, which is, well, yeah, well, you have to have these parentheses because that's where you have to input your text. But you can't just input the text in any single way, right? Say I want to input the text without these quotations. Let's say I input hello world. It didn't work. And so the reason why it's like this is that this hello print statement, this print statement right here, needs to take in a sort of text, but it doesn't see any text, right? So in order to actually notify that it's a string or any sort of text, we have to let it know by putting it within quotations, or like, sorry, yeah, the quotations. So if I type in hello world now, it will work. And you'll actually be able to see it print out hello world. See, now it works, right? So you guys have to remember that when you use this magical little print statement, you can't just input the word without these important quotations. And most of the time, you'll know when there's an error because it will actually underline it for you, which is that's one of the most helpful parts of a text editor, right? So right now, is underlined as incorrect because Java doesn't know what this means. It doesn't know that it wants us to actually print out this statement called hello world. Instead, it interprets it as something else, which I'm going to get to right here. So in your math class, you may or may not have heard about something called a variable. Let's see if I can add a file. Okay, what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to switch between these two tabs, which one of them will be specifically for the whiteboard. Okay, but so for instance, in Java or in math and in real life, you have things called variables. So if you've gotten that far in math, then that's great. But if you haven't, don't worry, because I'm going to explain to you exactly what a variable is right now. Okay, so variables are actually very important, and they're used to store information. So for instance, normally in code, you wouldn't tell the computer to, so say I wanted to tell the computer to print out hello world. Well, one of the ways I can do that is what I just showed you guys, which is with a system.out.print line statement, right? And so inside of these brackets right here, I add in quotations hello world, right? And that is one way to accomplish to solve the solution of printing hello world. But what if I don't want to print hello, I want to print hello world, but I don't want to I want to print it multiple times, right? What I could do is I could add another one of these statements right here and directly copy and paste it. But I mean, it does take like 2 seconds to do. But what you could also do, another way to approach this, is to actually create a variable, right? And so that's what variables are so great for. With variables, you can actually change your data, right? So and so like, why would you want to have data in the first place, right? Because I'm telling you what variables are, but it doesn't make sense if you don't know what to do with them, right? Oh wait, hold on. We have a question from Matthew John. Okay, so can the colon at the end be a semi or a colon, right? Because in Python it's a colon. Okay, so in Python, so Python does not use brackets at all. Everything in Python is indented, right? So if you don't know Python, if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, don't worry, because this has nothing to do with it. But like in Java, it has to be a semicolon. It can't be just like a regular colon, right? That won't work, and that's just primarily because that's the way it's written, right? So if you see, I try to have a full colon right here, it'll tell me that there's an error, right? I have to have a semicolon. If you don't have a semicolon in front of every line of code, then your program will come into an error, because then the computer will not know how to interpret that line of code. Okay. All right. Okay. What's the character after print? So the character after print I have here is ln, right? And so there's actually two types of print statements, but we'll just focus on this one for now. All right. Okay, and so back to the main topic at hand, which is variables, right? Variables are incredibly useful, right? Because I'll give you guys an example. Say you have the game Minecraft, right? And this is a great example because, hold on, let me take the water. It's really important to stay hydrated, because then not only does your body get that water, you not only feel more refreshed, but you also feel more awake. And that's particularly important when you're teaching. All right, so back to the subject at hand, variables. So say you have Minecraft, and I'm sure all of you guys know what Minecraft is, right? So with Minecraft, you have weapons, right? So say in Minecraft you could have a sword, and so this sword does a particular amount of damage. How do you know how this damage is stored, right? And what happens if you want to like change the damage? So we could say that maybe the sword is worth 15 points of damage, right? And so, but right, what if you want to what if you whenever you want to do something to the sword's damage, for instance, what if you wanted to change the sword's damage so that it does more damage when it's enchanted? Well, what you could do, one way of doing it, is to just take the number 15 and then add whatever amounts or like change it in some sort of way, right? But that can be really hard. What if you forget how much the sword damage is worth? Well, in that case, what you can do is define a variable. And so variables are used to hold information. And so they're like, think of it like this. Say you have a box, right? Just a plain cardboard box. Okay, and so inside the box, it's completely empty, right? But what you can do is you can assign a value to that box. So say I have a pencil sharpener and I put it inside of my box, right? So in that case, whenever I want to get something, I won't. I will go to the box, right, and say I want to. Let's say sorry, this was a bad example, but all right, let's keep going. So say I have my pencil sharpener, right, and so I don't. So I can put stuff inside of the box, right? And that box will hold the value of those. So instead of actually having to call pencil sharpener, I'll be able to just call the box. And so probably a better example would be to use marbles. So say I have 15 marbles right here. So I have a jar. Well, I have 15 marbles. Actually, no, we won't use a jar. I have 15 individual marbles on the floor right now. 15 right here, right? But what's the way in which I can keep track of these marbles in a much better and better way so that they don't roll all over the floor? Well, one thing I can do is to keep track of all these marbles inside of a variable. For instance, a jar, you will keep track of them in a jar. And in this case, the jar is very much our variable. We hold this value, right? Even though we even though like it's called something different, we still know that inside the jar we have 15 marbles, and so no matter what, so you can't say that like it still has the same value, right? But it's for us, it's much easier to transport around in opposition to carrying 15 individual marbles, which is be really hard to keep track of. And so that's what software developers and people who code do. What they do is that instead of actually keeping track of all these numbers, they assign them names. With these names, they're able to change these numbers or carry around these marbles a lot easier, like us. Okay, yeah. Don't worry if it takes a while to run. That's just because of the code of the website. So with some programming languages, some are a bit slower and some are a bit faster than others. That's because that some languages, well, the most efficient programming language is binary code, which is just a bunch of ones and zeros. But what code actually is it's a set of instructions, right, that teaches the computer what to do. And so these statements, these pieces of code, are actually just a bunch of series of zeros and ones, right? And so once the computer has to take some time to look at each line and then read and then figure out what it means, right? And so I think with the way the website is made, it just takes a lot of time for it to be compiled in this environment. But it shouldn't stop us because it'll just waste at most a few seconds of our time. So let's see, public static void. Is the public static void part mandatory? Okay, so yes, inside of our main class, a public static void method is mandatory, but I'm not going to get into detail about this right now because frankly, that covers methods in general, and I don't want to spend too much time on something without something on like something that's ahead of us without covering the prerequisites, which in this case we should be covering variables. Okay, so just like in real life, we have to know what our variable is though, right? Is it marbles? Is it water bottles? Is it pencils? Right? Or is it a number, right? So in Java, what you have to do is you have to specify what kind of data your variable is holding, right? And so the way there's a couple different types of data types. And I'm going to tell you guys the primitive data types which take the least amount of memory or storage, right? So the first type of data you can have is an integer, which in Java are like a whole number, which is called int. Notice how this word is shown in blue. That means it's important, right? So the purpose of this is that it's specifying that whatever variable we name after this is going to be an integer, right? It's going to be a whole number. So say I create a variable numbers, or I'll create a number because we only have one singular number, right? So int number. Okay, so in this line of code, we're creating a variable called number. And what we're saying to the computer is that this number, this variable called number, is going to be an integer, which is a whole number, okay? And so we're going to say that this number is equal to, I don't know, any number will be fine, but we'll just say it's equal to 1, okay? And we add the semicolon right after, right? Forget the semicolon, right? This part is very similar to Python in the fact that you have the variable, and then right after you state the value of that variable. But in Java, the main key difference is that you have to specify this what data type it is beforehand, or else it won't be able to create that variable. That's just the way things are in Java, unfortunately. Yeah, and so now that we've created our number, we can move on to another variable, another data type, which is called a string. So in order to create a string, we want to, right here, have this keyword string. This will indicate that the variable we name, just like before, will be a string. But in this case, instead of being an integer, it will be a string because we specified to be of the string type. So let's say we have a string word. And so in this time, instead of giving it a value of a number like this, we can give it the value of a word. So for this word, we will say the word will be Sunday because today is Sunday, right? And so what this does is that it creates a variable and then tells the computer that this variable will store a string value, okay? And so a string type. And so what we do is that, okay, we want to store a string type. Since this specifies a string, we have to store it within these brackets. Well, not brackets, these little quotations right here, right? If you have a word, you want to store a word, then you have to put it in quotations or else it will not work. All right, now let's continue. Another data type we have is called a double. So if you know what a decimal is essentially so we have decimals in math, right? And so if you want to have a decimal in Java, what you do is that you call it a double. And what it will be able to do is it'll be able to store a decimal. Okay, so say we have the variable called decimal, and we make it so that this decimal variable is worth 2.5 and 2.5. Okay, so if I try to do this with an integer, it will not actually work unless you use a specific integer object. In that case, it will typecast, but I'm getting ahead of myself, right? So you always want to make sure that when you're declaring a variable, that you specify what kind of data type it is. And so right now, because we're just starting out, these are really the only variables that we will use. Integers, which are whole numbers, strings, which are strings, well, they're basically words, text, and doubles, which are decimals. Okay, and so once you know how to use variables, that's one of the first stepping stones to actually be able to do stuff on the computer, to actually be able to program. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to combine what we learned with print statement. Sorry. Oh yeah. I don't get what you're saying. All right, all right. So no problem, no problem. Could you tell me what part you're having a bit of trouble with? Yan, are you having any trouble? Because don't worry, don't worry. Uh, if you the problem, this is not a problem at all, because the real problem is if you didn't have any trouble, right? Uh, sorry, no, it's sorry, Angela. I said that Yan did not understand something, so I'm currently asking him what his issue is right now. So Yan, if you do have any issues, feel free to let me know what part you're stuck on, and then in the help session afterwards, I'll post the Zoom link and you guys can join me and I'll oh, the coding part. All right. So let me go through it one more time. So in our third line, we have this line right here, which creates a variable called number. Now, as I said before, when we create a number, or like any sort of variable, when we create a variable, we have to specify what type it is exactly beforehand, or else we won't be able to create one. Okay. Oh, Aiden. All right, sorry. On your end it says Yan, but okay, I'll just call you Aiden from now on. So again, when we create a variable, we have to tell the computer what it's holding, right? Just like in real life, if you go to the store and tell them you want 5, they won't understand what you're saying. They're gonna think you're a crazy person, right? Why did you come to the store and just ask me for the number 5, right? Well, you have to specify 5 of what you want, right? Say you want 5 bananas, 5 apples, 5 watermelons. Well, how are they supposed to know what you want, right? That's the same case in Java. But instead of telling them what kind of fruit you want, you're going to tell them using this word called, you're going to tell them the number you want to get a number. And so inside of this variable, you will store the number 1. Okay, alright. Just friendly reminder, if you guys are having any issues, feel free to type in the chat, okay? But I don't see any issues right now, so I'll just keep going. Alright, so we have variables, right? And we know that variables are able to store data. So what do we use variables for? Well, we make it easier to do functions with them, right? To do things with them. So say I want to print out the number, I want to print out what day it is today, but I don't want to write what day it is today, right? Because I'm lazy. Well, what we can do is that we can beforehand store it inside of this variable called word, which would be probably a better idea to name it day. What we do is that we store it inside this variable called day, and we're able to actually print out Sunday without actually printing out Sunday. Why? Because we're able to print out the day instead, which sounds kind of weird, right? You're able to print out Sunday but not actually print out Sunday. What do you mean? Well, because we actually stored this word Sunday inside of the variable day, all we have to do is just print out day. And because inside of the day, we have Sunday, right? So Sunday is stored inside of day, and I should probably show you guys what I mean. So we have our variable called day, right? And so this is equal to Sunday, right? We don't want to print out Sunday. We do want to print out Sunday, but we don't want to write it out like this. What we can do is we can actually print out day, and it will give us the same thing as just typing in Sunday, and I'll show you right now. See right here, we have just typed out the word Sunday without actually writing in Sunday, right? And that's because we put the word Sunday into this string variable called day. And by printing out day, we're actually able to print out Sunday because inside day is actually the word Sunday, right? And so I'm going to show you guys one more time. I'm going to show you without using variables to show you that it's the exact same. So right now you will see two Sundays actually appear, Sunday and Sunday, right? The reason, so I just explained it to you, so I won't go too much more into depth, but now I'm going to move on to the next part. All right, which is math operators. So if you know math, right, then you know addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, right, which is the very basics of arithmetic. And in Java, we can also use math. So say you wanted to find addition of two numbers, right? We are able to actually do that by printing out that value. So what we can do beforehand is that we can create a variable that will store sum of those two numbers. And if you don't know what sum means, sum basically just means the value that you get when you add two numbers together, okay? So let's say we have two numbers, okay? And say we have 2 and 5. Okay, Kunal, okay, so what, when you type out system.out.print, what goes after that? After you type out this line is actually not important because I didn't finish writing that. But if you came a bit earlier, I was just talking about system.out.print line function, right? So print ln. So what this does is that it prints whatever is inside of these parentheses to the screen, right? If you're having a bit of trouble with that, I can talk to you after the class and we can sort it out, or you can rewatch the stream. Either is fine. We'll just move on for now. Okay, let's see. So someone said something. So Matthew John says it says no source file. Okay, I'm not particularly sure what you mean, but what I will do right now is I will create a Google Meet call and I will actually add you to the Google Meet call so that Nermit can help you out with that, okay? Oh, it's in line 1? Okay. No, the in part, is it a 1? Oh, yes, that is this is actually an I. Well, no, not an I, it's an L. So I should probably specify that, yeah. So what this here means after the print is an L and N. So I hope that solves your question. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create, actually, Nermit, can you do that? Can you create a Google Meet call and then send it to the chat for Matthew to join? All right, okay, Matthew, you're in good hands. You have an expert coder with you. All right, thanks, Number. All right, in that case, let's get on. And if we have no more questions, I'll proceed, right, to talk more about these math operators. All right. So as I said before, in Java, what you can do is you can add, subtract, divide, and multiply numbers, right, and decimals, right, just like how you can do in your math classes, right? And so in Java, we're able to do this with the plus sign. And so the plus sign in Java is the exact same in your math classes, right? If you don't know what the plus sign is, then I don't know if you can attend this class, but hopefully you guys know what that means, the plus sign, right? Another sign we have is the subtraction sign, which is, if you don't know how to find it on your keyboard, it's the key on the right side of the 0 button at the very top. So what this does is that it subtracts the number, right? So 2 minus 5, well, you get -3, right? All right, good. I hope we don't need to go over subtraction, or else that would make this very hard to teach. But I'm going to assume you guys are good at math and already know that, all right? So another thing we have is multiplication. And so in multiplication, what you guys might have used is this X symbol, right? But in Java, you can't use the X symbol, right? Because basically in Java, it interprets the X as a character, right? Which is not, it doesn't interpret it as a math sign. And so when you type X, it assumes you're trying to create a variable, right? But because you don't have the variable X beforehand, it doesn't know what X means, and so that will give you an error. And I'll show you right now just what will happen if you try to use the X in opposition to the actual multiplication symbol, which I'll show you right now. See, it says not a statement because it doesn't recognize this as a math operator, okay? And so the actual symbol for multiplication is this. It's this star button, which you get when you press Shift and 8 at the same time. Oh yeah, no problem, David. I know subtraction is really hard for many people. I actually have a cousin who has just finished learning calculus in college, right? And he's been having tons of trouble with subtraction recently, right? Um, yeah, but calculus is pretty easy in comparison to subtraction. Anyways, all right, get back to the topic of multiplication, right? So in order to get yeah, oh yeah, no problem. Okay, Matthew, really quickly, as you heard the kind man say, can you copy and paste, or I don't think that would be very safe, but Nirma, is it possible you could paste the link to it in the chat? Yeah, because I don't think I saw it either, to be honest. I don't know. Just try one more time, and if the, huh? Can you pin it? Oh yeah, sorry. Wait, I don't think it's even here though, right? I don't think it's even here though. Yeah, because I don't think you posted it at all. All right. Okay, Matthew. All right. So what I think I'll do right now is that I'll actually create a meeting myself. All right. So I'm going to leave this meeting with you, Nirma, and I'm going to go create a meet for Matthew. Okay? Yeah, I'm gonna leave this meet and I'm gonna create another meet for Matthew. Okay? Yeah, yeah. So okay. Oh my gosh, so much symbols here. God. Okay, yeah. All right, hold on one moment. I'm going to type that in, and I think you see it. So basically, you want to go to here and you want to press that link. Can you see the link? Yeah, okay, I just typed it in. And so if you want, you can actually join that call with me. Hey, Michael, what's up? We also have Matthew. So Matthew, what's your issue? Okay, could you share me your screen really quickly so I can help you? All right, thank you. Oh, hey, Michael. I don't know you. All right, so I'm not going to let anyone in because, uh, yeah, because we just want to help Matthew right now. Okay. Oh, you have to get rid of that E. You see in your line 7? You want to get rid of the E. Yeah. Yeah, and so if you get rid of that E, try again, and it should work perfectly fine. No. So keep that E, but you see where it says print? You see where it says print? The word print? Yeah, get rid of that E. Yeah. You really want to be careful with your syntax, or else you'll create small errors like that. But it's no source files. Oh, that's because it doesn't know that it's a Java file. So I want you to rename your file to main.java. So the cover uppercase M, please. Uppercase M. Main.java. So can you type in an uppercase M? Yeah, so yeah, press rename. And so uppercase M, yeah, dot Java. All right, and now now can you try running it again once more? All right, there we go. See, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. So if you don't have any questions, you can just leave the call. Okay. All right, and sorry to the other people who are waiting. Yeah, that will happen sometimes. Like small issues, especially at the beginning. But what's most important is that we got them sorted out. All right, let's continue. So this right here is the multiplication sign. And so when you do that, it will print out these two numbers multiplied together. So if we run this right here, it will give us 10 because 2 times 5 is 10. Right here, see? And so what we can also do is that we can have multiple operators to create a variable, right? So if you're ever having trouble with math and you don't have a calculator on hand, that's very unlikely, but you can do is you can go create a Java file and then code it up in your main method and then test it out. So now we can also do this. And so the thing about Java is that it also follows the order of operations. So if you print out value, what it will do is that first it will do this line of code here. This part here, 2 times 5, and then it will subtract 2 minus 1, right? And so I'll show you guys again. So 2 times 5 is 10. Minus 2 times 2, that's 4. So 10 minus 4, you get 6. And what do we get? We get 6 because that's how Java works. All right, so the next sign we're going to go on to is the division sign, which is forward slash. Okay, and especially in Java, there's the divide sign is very special because it doesn't work how you would expect it to do in normal math. Yeah, Aiden, you can click on run. Okay, and so you see here, I put in 5 division sign 2. So 5 divided by 2, right? And so normally that will give you 2.5, right? Which is not a whole number. But over here we got 2 in our console. And actually the reason because of that is because that we can only store an int value. So, and what I mean by that is that we cannot store a decimal, right? And that's because, well, that's because we told it that we have to store an int, a whole number. And so that's what it does. You could, if you guys are interested and you guys know what binary is, you guys could make a program with using this to find like to convert numbers into binary. That might be a little hard for you guys right now, but that could be a project you guys can try in the future. But anyways, let's go on. So you have the division sign, right? So this is in the case of whole numbers, aka int values. But say we want to have a decimal, aka double value. In this case, it would give you a double value because, well, you told it to store double, not a whole number. Oh, my bad. Okay, so sorry, what I didn't do is I didn't cast this into an int. So what it still assumes is that it will take these two numbers, right? 5 divided by 2, and because those are both whole numbers, it will expect to give you a whole number, right? And so then it will give you 2. And so what you get is 2, but then it doesn't actually register as 2.5, right? It will just register at 2, and then when you say double, it will just add the 0.0 to it. So what you would actually want to do is do this, 5.0, and then you would get the decimal. Yes? Oh, okay, yeah, no problem, no problem. All right, so, okay, I don't know why, but when I ran it, it didn't work. It says that my script has errors, but I have everything nailed down and correct. And I did everything correct. So you have class main, okay. So int number is equal to 1, string Sunday is equal, okay, so you have all the semicolons. Okay, so what I want everyone to do is that, okay, so if everyone could, if the people who have any troubles could, I'm going to post the link to the meet again and you guys can join it. And so just click on that link and then me or Nermit will be able to help you. But okay, alright, we'll continue going right now. Alright, so now we know how the division in Java works, and it's a bit weird, right? Because we told it to be a decimal. It didn't give us a decimal. Why? Because it assumed that this was already an integer, right? And so when you do integer division, it always gives you an integer back, which means it'll always give you a whole number back. So, which is why you have to specifically state that one of the numbers is a decimal, and then it will give you a decimal. Or else it'll just give you the integer, but with a 0.0 at the end. Alright, and so the next sign we will be working with is this sign. So it's a percentage sign, but as we like to call it, it's also called a modular division sign. And so what this does is that it will give you the remainder of a division statement, okay? So if we run this right now, it will give us the remainder of 5 divided by 2, right? And since obviously 2 does not divide into 5 evenly, the remainder will be 1, and it will give us 1 right now. It's taking a while to run. Okay. Oh, sometimes this happens. Let me just reload this. And rerunning. Okay. Okay, see, and now it will give us 1. Why? Because 5 divided by 2 will give us 2, right? And then after that, you take the remainder of it, which is 1. So let's have another example. Say we have number 5 divided by 5 modular divide by modular divided by 3. In this case, it'll give us 2 because 3 can only fit into 5 evenly one time. And then we have the remainder of 2, and it'll give us 2. Right, as you can see right here. And so you can use this for a case to see if a number is even or odd, right? Because all even numbers are divided by 2, but all odd numbers are cannot be divided by 2, right? And so what you could actually do to test out, so if we know that all even numbers are divisible by 2, and that all even numbers are not divisible by, all numbers are not divisible by 2 and give a remainder of 1, we can actually use that later on, take that knowledge and use it to create even number detector, which will basically tell us if the number is even or not. Alright, and so we have most of the data types out of the way. One of the most simplest data types I didn't talk about yet, but perhaps one of the most important data types, is the true/false, so Boolean. So the Boolean data type is different from the string, double, and the int because it doesn't store a number and it doesn't store a word. It stores something that's a true or false value. So what do I mean by true or false value, right? It's a true or false value is basically means that if something is true, right, then it's true, right? There's only two possible values, true or false. It's like on a test and you have two answers to choose from. Is it true or false? Is this statement true or false, right? That's what I mean by true or false. So is the moon real? Well, obviously that's false. Who believes in the moon? The moon is not real, right? So we will create this Boolean, is the moon real? And so we could say that it's false because the moon's not real, right? Right, guys? Oh, it does not work. Angela. Okay, my code works fine, but I'm too stupid to add anything. Okay. First of all, you're doing the wrong thing right now by putting yourself down, right? This is your first day, your first hour at that, like learning a new programming language, and you're already putting yourself down. It doesn't really make sense to get mad at yourself, considering you don't know the language very well yet. So what I advise you to do is to just keep listening and then keep trying. And if you do have any questions, talk to me or Nermit, or you'll eventually see some other person in the help session after class. Okay. Oh yes, none. We also have the none type. I don't want to get the non-Boolean type. I don't want to get into that right now. I just want to work with true or false. So as long as we understand that, we can also we'll just work with that right now. But that's a good point. Whatever your name is, Pepper's Pig. That's a funny name. All right. Okay. So basically, of true or false statement is really useful because if we can say that, we can use them in if statements later on, which will be able to trigger certain parts of our code. And that's actually what I'm going to go into right now. Okay, so who is that? Who's that in the meet? Rohan, can you mute yourself really quickly? Thanks. Nermit, can you go into a breakout room with him really quick? Mm. Alright, okay. Now we're going to be talking about if statements. Okay. Alright, so in programming, we don't want to in programming, we're not going to run a piece of code. One piece of code will not fit all scenarios, right? So say we want to write a program which will tell us if you can sleep in, right? Normally there's certain occasions when you can sleep in and when you can't sleep in, right? For instance, if it's the weekend and you have nothing to do, well then it's okay to sleep in. However, if it's not weekend and you have school, well, you're not going to be able to, right? And so how are we going to be able to tell whenever we are able to go to school, right? What we can do is that we can store these values in booleans, right? And with these booleans, we can create if statements. So in Java, we have if, so if keyword. This creates an if statement. Inside these two parentheses, we talk about the conditionals. So we could say if let's say if value, so say we have an int value beforehand. Int value is equal to 0. So we'll say that if we don't have any books in our bag, then we should go get some books, right? And so then we will express the number of books in our bag with this keyword called value. And if we have 0 books, which we do right now, we will say go get some new books. But if we don't, then we will do something else. So that's particularly why if statements are useful. And so in an if statement, you also need to be careful that you use 2 equals signs, right? That's just the way it is. For some reason, I don't know why, but I think it's assuming that like you're creating a new variable inside of an if statement, and that wouldn't be very good. But yeah, so you use these 2 equal sign, which I like to call double equals. So if the value equals 0, if we have 0 books in our bag, we will say, and this is really important, after you have an if statement, you should put parentheses, okay? Because then it will tell you what code to execute inside of that if statement. Okay, let's see how do I pin a comment. So Nerman, what link do you want me to pin? Oh, this one, yeah, I'll just pin it real quick. Yeah, I just pinned it. Yeah, I just pinned it. Alright, so we'll say that if we have 0 books in our book bag, then what we will do is we will print to the screen we have no books. But we want to make sure that if we do have books in our screen, that we say something else, right? Because that just makes sense, right? So if we don't want to do that, we can just leave it as it is, right? If we only want to find out if we have books or not. If we only wanted to print if we have no books, then this is completely fine. But what if we do have books? Then what do we want it to do? Well, in that case, we can use an else statement. And so an else statement will basically run the code within here if this condition is not met. So for instance, if our book bag does have books, so if value is not equal to 0, then we will say our book bag has books. Or if it was a negative number, let's assume that value, this number here, this variable will always be positive. If we assume that, then we can truthfully say that we have books in our bag, because it would not make sense to have a negative number of books in your bag. Okay, so that means we can say if we do have books in our bag, then we could say we have books in our bag. We have books in our, or we will just say we have books. And so what you can do is that you can also you could do this, right? But you could also use the Boolean value. right? The true or false value to also run the code in another way. So let's say we have a variable which is called do we have books? And we'll set it to as a boolean because well, there's only two options when you have this question. You can either have books or you can not have books, right? And so in this case, what we would do is that we would use a boolean because this is the case where it makes sense to use it when you only have two or options, a true or a false. It's like asking your dog if it's red or if it's brown, right? Unless your dog is Clifford the dog, then it's not going to be true, right? So it's the booleans are really good for when you only have two possible options, right? Are you smart or are you not smart? Or is this water bottle plastic or is it not plastic, right? There's only two options that can be chosen from plastic or not plastic. So anyways, in this case, we have the boolean, do we have books? And so we can assume that until we check our book bag, we have all of our books, right? Assuming that but the day beforehand, we put all of our books into the bag. So we can say that our bag does have a couple of books because we're going to school. Okay, right? And so what we can do here is say that we look into our bag right now, right? And so the number of books we'll have will be stored in this variable called num of books. All right, and so what we're going to do right now is check if we have books with this statement right here, this if statement. Now, if we do have books, then we can say that the number of books is not equal to 0. Okay, and so I think I should probably reiterate more upon that. So in addition to the equals sign, which you can use, in addition to this equals signs, which symbolizes if two things are equal to one another, you also have the opposite, just like in booleans, if they're not equal to one another. And you can map that out with this, using the exclamation mark and then the equal sign. So it's not equal to operator, well, basically what it does is that we can use it in an if statement, and in our case, we can say that if our number of books is not equal to 0, then we have books. Well, this is assuming that we have that the number of books can only be positive, right? But we also have something else, which is another operator, which is the larger than or smaller than sign, right? We have this larger than sign. For instance, we can have we can compare two variables with this sign. Let's say we compare. Let's say we have two cars. We have car 1. We have car 2, right? So what we're doing right here is that we're comparing these two cars to see that if this car 1 is smaller than car 2, well then we'll do something, right? But let's say we're measuring the the weight or like the mass of the car, okay? And so we can write a program to find which car is actually heavier. But first I'll finish this. So we have the boolean, do we have books? And if we do have books, then that's good, right? But if we don't have books, then that's bad, right? Okay, so then we're going to check if we actually have books though. So what are the conditions that will determine whether or not we have, oh, Aiden, can we slow it down? Yeah, no problem, no problem, no problem. We can slow it down, of course. So again, I'll just take a quick water break. And then once I finish this, I'll use the last half an hour of class to go into the help session room and help people, okay? Alright, so right now we have our number of books, right? So we want to know if we have books or not, right? But how do we know if we have books or not? Well, we have to check our book bag. And so with this statement, what we're doing is checking our book bag. We're looking at the number of books. And we're going to say, okay, if our number of books is not equal to 0, what we will do is we will do this line of code, right? We will execute this line of code. And so what it will do is that it will print that we have books. But if our number of books is not equal to 0, then if the number of books that we have is equal to 0, well, that means we have 0 books, right? And as we said before, in this case, there's two options. We have books or we don't have books, right? And so we don't have any books, we say we have no books. I guess it was kind of redundant to have this boolean, but that's okay. And so then if we run this, it will say we have no books. Why? Well, because the number of books is 0. And any number other than 0 means that we have some sort of quantity of something, right? Let's move on to another example. So say for instance, you're comparing two cars. Well, in order to compare two things, what you have to do is you have to create a variable, right? In order to actually compare it, or else how do you know what you're comparing, right? So what we'll do right now is we'll create an int. So today we're just going to be working on comparing with integers and doubles. Next time we'll be working on with some other Boolean values which you can use, and we'll be working with the comparing strings, which works a bit different compared to integers and doubles. But okay, let's continue. So let's compare the mass of two animals. Let's choose a cow and a chicken. So what we'll create is we'll first create the variable that will store the value of the cow's weight, or the cow's mass, I mean, sorry. So what we'll do is we'll name a variable called cow mass. So as you see here, I'm declaring it that it is an int, meaning that it will register like a whole number value, right? And not a double. I'm talking about the data type, and then afterwards I'm going to specify just how heavy this cow is. So we're going to say that the cow's mass is kilograms. Let's say that it's a very light cow. Let's say it's only 10 kilograms. Okay? And now once we have the cow mass, we have to get chicken mass. And so what we'll do is that we'll create a variable called chicken mass. And we'll also make that an int. And we'll say that this chicken is only 1 kilogram mass. Wait, doesn't not, yeah. So basically, so doesn't the exclamation, yeah, you're completely right, Pepper's Pig. So this exclamation equal sign means that if it's not equal to something, right? So we're going to use that right now, and I'll show you. If you guys do have any other questions, feel free to type it in the chat. Sorry if I didn't get to all of them. It's just that like I want to get through all of the material within the time, and then after class I'll be free to answer all the questions you have. Okay, guys? Alright, but let's get back. So we have our two integers, or our two variables, which are declared as integers, right? Now once we have our variables, we can finally do stuff with them, and we can finally do things such as comparing. So as we're comparing, we're going to say we're going to compare the sizes of the animal. So if one animal is heavier, then we'll say that that animal is the heaviest. So let's say we ask the question, is the cow heavier than the chicken, right? So what we'll do is we'll create another variable, but this time it'll be a Boolean variable that will have the answer to our question, right? Because the question that I'm asking only has two different answers to them. The answer can only be true or false. So is the cow heavier than the chicken? If the cow is heavier than the chicken, then it's true. If it's not, then it's false, right? There's only two different answers. Then of course, if they're the same weight, then you could say they're equal, or that none of those Boolean values are satisfied, in which we could use another Boolean value, but I won't get into that right now. So we'll just use we'll say that we already guessed that the cow is heavier than the chicken, right? Because what kind of chicken is heavier than a cow? So we'll guess that the answer is true. So we'll say that our variable called answer, our answer to the question will be equal to true, okay? And so if you remember, our question is the cow heavier than the chicken? But we actually want to check. We can't just be making assumptions, right? So in order to properly check, we have these two values, right? And so what we want to do in order to get the computer to give us the correct answer, we have to use an if statement in order to get it to compare it. Well, not to compare, but in order to execute a specific piece of code if the cow is heavier than the chicken. So we'll say that if the cow mass is larger than the chicken mass, we will say that the answer will be true. But in the case that the cow is not heavier than the chicken, so we'll say else. So the else statement is basically saying that everything else that could happen, right? So if the cow is not heavier than the chicken, then it will automatically print what's in the else statement. And so if we have something in here, if the cow is not heavier than the chicken, then it will print, well, it won't print, but it will execute whatever is in here, right? So we'll say that if the cow is not larger than the chicken mass, well then we'll say that the answer is false because our guess was false. Because our original answer is that we thought, this cow must be heavier than chicken, but if it's not, well then we'll say that our guess or answer was false. So now what we'll do is that we will use system.out.print len statement to check whether or not we were right or wrong. So what we'll do right now is we will print out the answer. It's taking a while, but it's okay. See, and it prints in true. Why? Because the 10 kilograms is heavier than 1 kilogram, right? Okay, let me look at the question. So if it's not equals, how is it printed? You don't have any books. Oh, no, but before, and the number of books was 0. Print no books. Okay, Pepper's Pick, if you have a question like this, unfortunately I already moved on, but if you do have, if you still want to ask this question later, I can definitely create a breakout room and you can ask me it again, okay? Alright. Alright, so as you can see, it printed out true. Why? Because our guess was correct. Our answer was true. We were trying to see if the cow mass was heavier than chicken mass, and that did turn out to be the case because 10 kilograms is greater than 1 kilogram. And so in this code, we were just looking to see if our guess was true, if our answer was true, or if it was false. Okay, and it's already been an hour and a half, so what I'll do right now is that I'm going to stop teaching for now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a break. I'm going to allow everyone into the Google Meet and to ask any questions if they do have any questions. I'm assuming for most beginners will, but if you've already did Python before and you're already quite familiar with, then you may not have any questions. But if you don't have any questions, that's perfectly fine because that means I get to leave earlier and work on my homework. But if not, that's fine. You get to ask me questions and I'll get to answer them. All right. So for today, that's all we're going to go over. Just to reiterate, what we went over today was we went over declaring variables. So what a variable is, and so how to declare a variable, right? So what we need to know when making a variable, we need to know what kind of data we're storing it as, whether it's an integer, a boolean, a double, or a string, right? Today we mainly worked with booleans, doubles, and booleans, doubles, and ints, but we'll get back to using strings in a later class. And we also worked with if statements. And so the reason why we use if statements, just to reiterate again, is because we want to run a particular line of code only if something is met. So for instance, let's say if the time is past 9 p.m., well, in that case, you should probably go to sleep because it's getting a bit late. But we can say that if the time is not past 9 p.m., well, we can say we can stay up, right? We don't have to go to sleep. So if statements are really good for just for in these kinds of cases where you want to execute some code when a particular need is met, and we can find out if these needs are met with these equal signs, or not this equal sign, the double equal sign, the comparison and the comparison operators. And we also talked about the math operators too. So we did touch on a lot today. So I will be in that breakout room to answer any questions you guys have in your own code. But for now, I'm going to end the lesson here today, and I'm going to leave you guys with an assignment, okay? So listen very closely. And you don't have to listen closely because you can just rewatch the stream. But I want you to work on this in your own time, and I want you to practice declaring variables, okay? I want you to practice declaring an integer variable. I want you to practice declaring a double variable. I want you to practice declaring a string variable. And I want you to try using these if statements to use it if you can solve a problem like we did here today. If we were trying to see if our guess was true as to whether or not a cow was heavier than a chicken, okay? So yeah, and if you do have any questions or like you want a clarification with this homework, you can talk to me in the breakout room, which I'll go to right now. And until then, I will be ending the stream and the class will end. Okay. Oh, nice. You made a Discord bot? That's cool. That's cool. Alright, I'll be ending the stream right now. Again, the Meet link is in the chat, but I will repost it. Okay. Alright, until then, bye everyone. Join the link if you have any questions.